What's up, everybody? We're here to go over UFC Vegas 89. Amanda Ribas taking on Rose Namajunas. As far as the results for last week, man, it was a bad card. Um, at least as far as the bets go, anyway. I mean, I did have a two-fight parlay that hit. It was a Despain and Almabov parlay. It was a minus 178. That was a one-unit play. Um, and then I guess Jalton Almeida is the one that got me the most on that one. I had two other small plays. One was an underdog play on Song Yadong, but it was a very small play. And then I had a small play on Saint Denis as well. But if Almeida had won, it would have came out okay. He went out there. He was doing everything I said he was gonna do. In the first round, and came out and shot a takedown with his head off to the side and just kind of no setup or anything, and was just pushing for it and just letting himself get hit in the back of the head, or not in the back of the head, but in the head until he was out. So I mean, pretty dumb on his part, man. He was fighting a good fight up to that point. Um, but yeah, I mean, I was able to win, recoup some of my losses. I added a play on Sean Malley to win by decision. I had some live betting options there too. I live bet Dustin Poirier. Uh, pretty pretty deep into the fight, man. But, right at the end of the when did he win in the second round? I don't remember. I was several beers beers deep whenever I was live betting. So and I live bet Peter Yan as well because I could see Song was losing the fight, but I ended up coming out with not a whole lot of loss on the card. I mean, maybe like a little more than a quarter unit loss. So I mean, on the card before, luckily whenever I do have a good card, like on the card before UFC 299, I had like 3 units of profit on that card. So I'm pretty good at like keeping my losses to a minimum, and even if some of my bets don't hit, I usually end up making a lot of it back. So I'm not losing a ton of money. I'm still ahead. But this year, man, I've been having like win loss, break even, win loss on these cards. Just luckily when I win, like I said, I win a good bit and I end up not losing as much. But still, I need to get back on track, man. And some of these cards, man, that are coming up, I don't have a whole lot of real strong leans on, man. Here I am, 2 weeks early doing Ribas Namajunas card, and I've already been doing the notes for the next one too, the Atlantic City card. So, uh, but yeah, man, let's get into this card. We've had some last minute changes. Um, Junior Tafa was supposed to fight Carl Williams. Now Justin Tafa is. Edmund Shabazyan was supposed to fight Dusko Todorovic, and now he's fighting AJ Dobson. Billy Quarintillo was supposed to fight Gabriel Miranda, and now he's fighting. Where'd it go? Now he's fighting Yusuf Zalal. I thought they switched the fights around the order. And Cody Gibson's now fighting Miles Johns. Muhammad Usman's now fighting Mick Parkin. And Stephanie Lucindo is fighting Julia Polastri, however you say her name. Anyway, let's get into this card, man. First up, we got Igor Severino taking on Andre Lima. And I got all my fights out of order here because they've been switching them around. Igor is 20 years old, almost 21, 5'7" with a 69.5-inch reach. He is 8-0, and this is going to be his UFC debut, and he's a minus 105. This guy's real young, man. All of his wins have been by finish, 4 knockouts, 4 submissions. He's only been to the third round once in his career. He also has a fight under the last name Da Silva, so I don't know, what's up with the change or whatever with that, but either way, if you're researching him, you might want to look up Da Silva as well to watch the tape. I saw Joe Anderson Brito in his corner on the Contender Series. He fought the best competition that his promotion had to offer. He beat a 9-1 guy before the Contender Series, and then of course a 8-1 guy on the Contender Series. Has nice striking, keeps his hands up where they're supposed to be. Good at defending punches. Throws great uppercuts to the body. Uses his jab very well. You can tell he's still developing some parts of his game. decent double legs and body lock takedowns. He's very good for such a young guy, for sure, and great calf kicks. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage in this fight. He can be pretty wild at times. We saw him in the second round of his last fight just start throwing hands, just wading into the pocket. And he did drop his opponent when he did that, but it's not a very smart way to fight. Nasty ground and pound, fights very aggressively. He's going to want to look for the takedowns in this fight. He's not going to want to, put his head down and swing for the fences against a high level striker like Lima. Um, Lima's a very good counter striker, so I'm not sure if that's a good game plan for him. That does kind of tend to be how he fights sometimes, though. So he's taking on Andre Lima. He is 25 years old. He's 5'7" with a 67.5-inch reach. He is 7-0, and this is going to be his UFC debut. And he's a -115. 5 wins by knockout, no wins by submission. Has a Muay Thai and kickboxing background. 3-time Brazilian kickboxing champion, 2-time South American kickboxing champion. Over 80 fights in kickboxing. He has a jiu-jitsu brown belt as well. So provided that his takedown defense is good, he should be a pretty solid fighter all the way around. He just beat a 14-1 guy in the Contender Series. Very good striking defense, really good calf kicks, great kicks to all levels. He throws the more kicks out of these two fighters for sure. He has an advantage there. Really sits down on his punches and his kicks. Great at checking kicks as well. Good at cutting off the cage. Great counter striking. In his last fight, he threw a really nice setup where he lunged in and kind of faked the punches and came over the top with the kick. It was a really sneaky little combination he threw there. Great elbows. Great elbows in close. Likes to frame off of the head up against the cage and use his elbows, when guys are trying to get the body lock on him. He switches stances a lot back and forth. He's good from both stances. He's the more technical striker out of these two for sure. His takedown defense seemed pretty good, in the tape that I watched. Based on what I've seen so far, man, I've got to go with Lima here. If he can keep it on the feet, he's more technical. He's better, with the counter striking. I'll take him to win by decision since Severino has never been finished, but could be a close fight, man. If Igor can get the takedowns going, it would make it a lot closer fight. But I feel like on the feet, Lima has a really big advantage there. Next up, we got Miles Johns taking on Cody Gibson. Let me slide down to this on my notes real quick. Originally, it's supposed to be Davy Grant, which I was really looking forward to that fight. That would have been a great fight. Miles Johns is 29 years old, almost 30 now. 5'7" with a 66-inch reach. He is 13-2, 13-2-1, sorry, and 4-2-1 in the UFC. No odds yet on this fight. They just put this up like yesterday, I think. His last win was overturned, to a no contest due to a tainted supplement. He failed a test or whatever, but they didn't keep him suspended very long. They didn't keep him out very long, so I think it was something that wasn't, very serious. But he looked amazing in that fight as an underdog. He really seemed to have improved a whole lot, and he proved a lot of people wrong. Tightened up some of the areas where people were criticizing him before. His cardio looked better. In the past, he's kind of had low volume fights where he didn't do as much as he should have, and he's barely slid by with decisions. But that wasn't the case in his last fight, man. He has a wrestling background, hits like a truck, great takedown defense, very good to get back to his feet if he is taken down. 4 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. He's got a big power advantage in this fight for sure. He could throw more volume, but when he lands, it does count. Usually hurts guys. He broke Daniel Argueta's nose in the third round of that fight, or maybe the second round. I don't remember. The thing is that the way that Cody Gibson fights, is he stays in range, he stays in the pocket, he stays moving forward. And although Miles was getting pressured in his last fight by Daniel Argueta, and yeah, he seemed to be struggling with it a little bit, but he was still landing the bigger shots and still, busting Argueta up, in the process. So yeah, I mean, he seemed like he was having a little trouble. He shot a few takedowns, because of the pressure, because he was getting pressured so much. He would land a few big shots. Argueta would keep running in on him. He would shoot a takedown, not get the takedown, but get back up to his feet, land big shots. Daniel would pressure. Then Miles would land a few big shots, shoot a takedown. It was just he was struggling a little bit with the pressure, like I said. But the thing is, with Cody doing that, he's going to be giving Miles Johns a chance to land those big shots. And he has a really nice check left hook. Throws a lot of real wide, heavy shots. Cody is probably the more technical striker out of these two. Johns has the wrestling as well. He just doesn't use it very much. Um, he's had a few third round knockouts, so the power carries over late into the fight. He shows 49% striking accuracy with 69% striking defense, which is a pretty good number. 22% takedown accuracy, which he doesn't really. He shot a few takedowns in the Argueta fight. I think he got one, but doesn't really shoot that often. 85% takedown defense. He averages one takedown per 15 minutes, and he lands on average 3.51 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.75. He's taking on Cody Gibson. He is 36 years old. He's 5'10 with a 71-inch reach. He is 19-9 and 1-4 in the UFC. Like I said, no odds yet. I would imagine Miles Johns might be the favorite. I don't know, man. Cody did put up a good fight in his last matchup. He has 7 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission. He's never been knocked out, but he has been submitted 4 times. He's coming off what I chose as the high kick fight picks fight of the year. The fight with Brad Katona. I thought it was a great fight. Um, he had a great first round, but he kind of faded slowly. But it was a hell of a fight, man. It was really fun, and he definitely deserves to be in the UFC still. He has a win over John Dobson on his record, which is kind of impressive, even though it's late in John Dobson's career. He has great boxing, very aggressive, uses nonstop pressure. He's a veteran. He's seen it all. Just hasn't had the success in the UFC that he's been looking for, but he's had the success everywhere else. And it was easy enough for him to beat up a few young guys on the Ultimate Fighter show and get back into the final fight at least. He will have a height and 5-inch reach advantage in this fight, which could play a factor. Obviously, in the past, his weaknesses have been his takedown defense and submission awareness and defense. He can be pretty wild at times. Doesn't fight very safe. Tall and rangy. Good at using his jab. Very big for the weight class. Nice uppercuts in the clinch. Um, this could possibly be a war. Be another fight of the night. Um, one thing I will say is at times, instead of using his reach and staying on the outside, kind of like what I was saying a minute ago, he does kind of throw away that advantage and just, stay in the pocket the whole fight. And he does put out a lot of volume. He will put out more volume than Miles Johns, but he shows 45% striking accuracy with 56% striking defense, 36% takedown accuracy with 64% takedown defense. He averages 1.35 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he lands on average 4.75 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.73. So absorbs and lands basically about the same, which isn't good. Um, of course, much of this is based on fights he had years ago in the UFC, since he's only had one recently. So a lot could have changed in that time. But I'm going to be going with Miles Johns here to win this fight. I'm going to take it to win by decision since Cody's never been knocked out. I could see Cody landing a lot of volume early, but I could see Miles hurting him with big shots and kind of stealing the rounds that way, on damage. Next up, we got Stephanie Luciano taking on Julia Polastri. Polastri? However you say her name. Sorry, I ain't got it. I forgot already. A lot of fights on my mind, dude. Where was that at? Find it on my notes. Stephanie Luciano. She is 24 years old. She is 5'6" with a 66.5-inch reach. She is 5-1-1, and this is going to be her UFC debut. The odds aren't up for this one yet either. The odds are still up for her last opponent and her, but not this one. I'm picking a lot of dogs on this card. Um, yeah, kind of a lot. Um, which I didn't really notice till I went back and really looked, at my after I'd finished doing my notes and everything. I'm like, man, I am picking a lot of dogs on this card. Um, but yeah, she was supposed to fight Shauna Bonin, and she's coming off a draw in the Contender Series where she lost the first 2 rounds, but had the superior cardio and beat the brakes off of what was her name, Alencar, uh, Talita Alencar. She beat the brakes off of her in the 3rd round and got a 10-8 round. She has 2 wins by knockout, never won or lost a fight by submission, and I actually think she's pretty good, man. She's tough as hell. I'm a big fan of someone who can come back after losing the first 2 rounds and put a beating on her opponent like that. She has a Muay Thai background. She has a good submission defense. Alan Carr was a high level jiu-jitsu practitioner, and she couldn't submit Luciano, so she has a big height and reach advantage in this fight as well. 4 inches taller, 3 inches of reach. Throws a wide variety of strikes. Good at managing distance. Good counters. Um, good front kicks. Nice straight shots. I really like her striking, man, and Yeah, her takedown defense didn't look good, but Alencar, had to completely gas herself out to get Luciano down and keep her down, for 2 rounds. So great calf kicks. In the third round of that fight, her last fight, her sprawls were on point. She was defending. So I don't know. I'm sure she's been working hard on her takedown defense. She throws good flying knees. She tries to time that on the takedown. She's very good with her striking, man. I really was impressed with what I've seen out of her for such a young and inexperienced fighter at only 5-1-1. Um, and the real thing comes down to is, do I think that Julia's grappling is as good as Alencar's? If you had to ask me that, I would say no, but at least Julia has good cardio, so but Julia is 26 years old. She's 5'2" with a 63.5-inch reach. She is 12-3, and this is going to be her UFC debut. She's heavily favored on Tapology. She lost her first time on the Contender Series to Jasmine Jasdavicius. Since she's won 4 straight fights. But 3 of those were against really crappy competition. Her last fight on the Contender Series was against a decent opponent, though, and she won by submission. She has a big edge in experience. She's never been finished. She has 4 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. The question, like I said, that I don't know that her grappling is as good as Alencar's is, but she's definitely more well-rounded than Alencar. She's got the striking that Alencar doesn't have. So it's a little bit different look, man. Even though I expect most of Luciano's opponents to be looking to take her down, um, Julia doesn't necessarily have to do that. She's got decent stand up and good power herself. Um, she does tend to throw everything with a lot of power. Rather than how Luciano will kind of just touch her opponents up and kind of pick and choose. Her hard shots that she throws. Um, Julia has a power advantage for sure. I don't think she's as good of a striker as Luciano, but definitely hits harder, pushes a tough pace, always moving forward, throws nice combinations, not afraid to sit in the pocket and trade. That's not a smart way to fight, and she was doing that in her last fight. I guess she was just trying to put on a good show in the Contender Series, but I could see her having trouble getting on the inside against the taller, longer fighter in this matchup. Um, yeah, I don't know. I was kind of torn on this fight, man. At the time, I still don't know what the odds are on this fight. Is what really bothers me. I mean, sometimes if it's really close, I'll just pick the underdog. But as far as just making a pick right now, I'm going to take Luciano to win this fight. I'm going to take her win by decision. I think she's going to use her range and land a lot of volume. Um, but like I said, I don't know what the odds are yet. So, uh, yeah. So I'm going to take her to win by decision. Could be a close fight, but Julia also might wind up being a huge favorite. So next up, we got Muhammad Usman taking on Mick Parkin. Oops, zoomed in on y'all there. Uh, so yeah, man. So far on this card, I haven't been able to go into the statistics much because a lot of these fighters are new and or only have like a couple fights in the UFC. Um, Now I got to track down this fight. I should just start doing these in the order that I did my notes in. I don't know why I do it like that. Muhammad Usman is 34 years old, almost 35. 6'2" with a 79-inch reach. He is 10-2 and 3-0 in the UFC, and he's a plus 140 underdog. 4 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. They've done a good job of giving him winnable fights. So far they've yet to give him an opponent with much to offer. Paga was fighting up a weight class. Tafa can't defend takedowns. Collier is a blown up middleweight, um, and he was having a little trouble with Collier at first. He has a wrestling background. He's got big power in his hands, but not very good striking. Like I said, he was getting hurt by Collier in the first round. Wasn't looking very good at that point. Um, I noticed he basically threw the same 3 strikes the entire fight. In his last fight, almost no kicks. He was throwing a 1-2 and then a big telegraphed right hook over and over again. And the sad thing is that even though that's all he was doing, Collier slowly started getting beat up by it. He is I think his striking's pretty slow because he's such a big guy. His best weapons are his takedowns because legit strikers are gonna beat Usman up on the feet. Does eat a lot of leg kicks. Wasn't checking them. Was using his jab pretty good. Like I said, he was throwing that 1-2 in his last fight. Um, there's been a lot of hype on both these guys, I think, but I've always just kind of been like whatever, um, especially about Usman. He shows 40% striking accuracy with 52% striking defense. They don't have his takedown defense on here. Maybe nobody's tried to take him down yet. Averages 1.26 takedowns per 15 minutes. He lands on average 2.92 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.96. He may have a power advantage on the feet, but he's probably going to want to look for the takedowns in this fight for sure. He's taking on Mick Parkin. He is 28 years old. He is 6'4" with a 79-inch reach. Both these guys have the same reach. He's 8-0 and 2-0 in the UFC. He's a minus 166 favorite. Sorry. 5 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. I found his last fight quite boring. He was a huge favorite, and he was just kind of holding his opponent up against the cage and looking for takedowns. He didn't really do much. Um, he was kind of getting outstruck in the first round. Actually, the first and second round, I think he was getting outstruck as a big favorite. He's well rounded for a heavyweight, has good takedowns himself. Was struggling with the speed of his opponent in his last fight, but Usman isn't very fast, so I don't expect that to be an issue here for him. He has the more technical striking as long as he can keep Usman off of him, keep it on the feet. He's got a good shot at winning this. It could be a close fight. Sometimes these guys are in close fights. They're kind of, I don't know. I don't want to be disrespectful or anything, but sometimes they're a little slow paced and neither of these guys have been getting finishes in the UFC lately. They both got pretty good cardio. I would say Parkin probably has a better cardio, though. I think Parkin is more well rounded skill wise. Hard to say who has the better wrestling, but I'm going to be taking Parkin to win by decision. I won't be getting super invested in this fight at all, though. Next up, we got Mazerat Rendon taking on Daria Zilikonov. Zhelyakov. I had it down the other day, man. I really did. When I was doing my notes, I had it down. Mazerat Rendon is 35 years old. She's 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. She is 6-0 and 1-0 in the UFC. She's a plus 120 underdog. She's coming off a split decision win over Tamir's Vidal. She's never won a fight by finish. All her wins have been by decision. Um, even a few split decisions as well. So, kind of barely getting by, man. I couldn't quite understand why she got to skip the contender series. Being as she's never even finished a fight. Um, it's kind of confusing to me. I'm just wondering if anybody else, what knows what the big deal is or whatever. Because she was only 5-0 coming in the UFC, never finished a fight. I don't know. It didn't make sense to me. I thought should have gone to the contender series first at least. She kept reaching down in her last fight for the leg kicks, trying to grab them, which could get her set up for a head kick here. She was eating a lot of leg kicks as well. Didn't seem to have much as far as takedowns in her debut. Um, Her takedown defense held up though. She seems content to kind of just go out and use her boxing. She was only throwing like 1 or 2 punch combinations in her last fight. Apparently, she's got championship level jiu-jitsu background, but she hasn't been using it. Both her and her opponent, her last opponent, looked pretty sloppy in her last fight. Man, even Tamir's Vidal was kind of looking pretty sloppy. Um, but yes, like Rendon has decent boxing, but nothing out of the ordinary. Honestly, you would think if she has, championship level jiu-jitsu, she would look to use that. I just haven't really been seeing that in what I've seen on the tape. Um, After watching the tape on her opponent, she's probably going to want to try and get this fight to the ground though for sure. Because Daria is a very good striker, man. And Daria is 28 years old. She is 5'9". We don't have a reach on her yet. She's 8-1, and this is going to be her UFC debut. She's a minus 142 favorite. 5 wins by knockout, no wins by submission. She hits hard, man. Has a power advantage here for sure. Her last loss was to Melissa Dixon, who's in the UFC now, and she used her jab well, sharp striking, nice 1-2, can get kind of wild at times. Even in the Melissa Dixon fight that she lost, she was busting Dixon up, cut her face all up, before Dixon got her down and was able to, I don't remember, was that a submission or, it was TKO, ground and pound. Um, I don't know that it was a great stoppage. She wasn't completely out or anything, but she was getting beat up. Um, where was I at? Since Rendon, tends to just kind of go out there and seem content to box in her fights, I think Daria, has a great shot at winning this if she can keep it on the feet. She's aggressive off of her back as well, throws up a lot of submissions. There's not a lot to go off of on either of these women here, relatively. they're both relatively inexperienced. Rendon has the UFC experience advantage, but I do like Zelenyakova's kickboxing. She's dangerous on the feet. I imagine that Rendon will be the favorite since she's fought in the UFC before. I was wrong about that. Um, I'll take Zelenyakova to win by decision. I think she's going to land the more meaningful shots. I don't know if she'll get a finish here, but um, you know, go back and watch the tape on her, man. She has some really sharp striking, some good power and pop on her punches. She's got some finishes on her record, which Rendon doesn't. So I mean, tell me what y'all think in the comments, man. Next up, we got Stephen Nguyen taking on Jarno Errens. Stephen Nguyen is 30 years old, almost 31, 5'11 with a 73-inch reach. He is 9-1, and this is going to be his UFC debut. Minus 192 favorite. I caught him at a little bit better price than that. He lost his first fight in the Contender Series to Alon Cruz, who didn't ever get a win in the UFC, so that's not such a good look there. But that was pretty young in Wynn's career. But he has won some fights over in Bellator. There was a flying knee knockout that Alan Cruz hit him with. I mean, it happens sometimes. You get hit with that. You're not going to survive that most likely. But um, other than that, he's been perfect as a pro and as an amateur. So 4 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. He actually won 2 fights on the Contender Series in a row before he got the contract. He trains at Fortis MMA, which is a great gym. Hits very hard, great striking, very fast hands, really good technique, great jab. Uh, great straight right hand as well. Really nice tight punches in the pocket. Good at using his feints and his jab to set up his combinations. Very good striking defense for a guy who goes to war. Um, he's pretty tall and rangy for the weight class. Both these guys are really. I mean, they have the same reach, so no advantages there. But they're both pretty tall for the weight class. He trains with world class guys, man. And it's been a while since we've gotten to see him use his wrestling or his jujitsu, but I'm willing to bet that he's got it, in the bag. And um, his takedown defenses look pretty good, held up so far. I don't know if Aaron's will be able to get him down. Um, there's a big difference between the people that 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 Aaron's is working with, where he's at, and the ones where Stephen Wynn is working out in his camp. So I think him working around ex champions and stuff like that, and all these tough guys is really going to help him out here in this fight. And he's taking on Jarno Errens. He is 29 years old. He's 5'11 with a 73-inch reach. He is 13-5-1 and 0-2 in the UFC. He's a plus 160 underdog. 3 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission. He has a lot of experience. He has the UFC experience advantage here. He's never been knocked out, but he has been submitted once. I tried to put some faith in him in his last fight, man. I picked him to win that fight. I think I even had a little small play on him. Um, when he was fighting Sung Choi, who was on a 3-fight losing streak at the time, and Aaron still lost. So I mean, he seems very fast and athletic. He's got some skills. He hits hard. He would be smart to try and get the takedowns here because Wynn's very technical, man, on the feet, and I don't think Aaron's, aside from landing a big shot, has a good shot on the feet here. Um, but Aaron's does his best work in a brawl when he's moving forward, and as far as his striking, yeah, he is very tough though. But as far as his striking, I think that Wynn's going to be the more technical guy. Um, Aaron's does keep his hands a little low at times and leaves a lot of openings to be hit. I'm not sure after watching the tape that he would be able to get the takedowns on Stephen Wynn, even though possibly. But I see Stephen Wynn being more technically sound and having the better defense on the feet. Aaron's did land a really nice uppercut in the second round against Choi, dropped him, but he got reversed and Choi ended up on top. So I do think that Stephen Wynn is better everywhere here. Like I said, outside of Aaron's landing some sort of crazy big shot, I got Stephen Wynn winning by TKO round 3. Next up, we got Ricardo Ramos taking on Julian Erosa. Gotta figure out where this fight was on the card. There we go. Um, Ramos is 28 years old. He is 5'9 with a 72-inch reach. He is 16-5 and 7-4 in the UFC. And I don't believe the odds were up on this one yet again either, man. I don't think they were. Um, where was I at? 16, 4 wins by knockout, 7 wins by submission. He's been knocked out and submitted 2 times each. He's coming off a loss to Charles Jourdain, where I actually picked Ramos to win that fight by submission, and then Jourdain choked Ramos out with a guillotine, so it made me look pretty stupid there. But Ramos's last win was over Danny Chavez, who, I don't think Chavez is in the UFC anymore. Ramos has a really good spinning back elbow. He's won a couple of fights with that. He does throw it way too often though, and it can be very predictable. He's good. He's well rounded. He has good footwork. It was pretty shocking to me though how easily Jourdain was able to win that fight. I don't believe Ramos has ever fought someone as big as Erosa, especially not in the UFC. So I'm curious to see how he approaches this fight, man. He has a lot of nice long range attacks, his spins and jumping knees, but does throw nice calf kicks. But going back to the Tugov fight, he wasn't moving his head off the center line, and the tighter, more technical striking of Tugov was finding the mark first and more often. And that mixed in with the takedowns and wrestling of Tugov laid out a great game plan to beat Ramos. Since then, we haven't seen much from him. Both his last 2 fights ended very quickly. So has he made the improvements? We don't really know. I don't know that he has very many advantages in this fight, aside from Erosa coming off 2 knockout losses in a row right now. I think Ramos' best bet may be to try to get Erosa down, but I'm not convinced that he would be able to. He doesn't look for takedowns very often, really. I could see him having trouble with the length of Erosa. Um, what else? Ramos shows 59% takedown accuracy with 73% takedown defense, and it says he averages 2.79 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he lands on average 3.21 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.78. 38% striking accuracy with 57% striking defense. Um, Gets hit slightly more than he lands. Not a good deal there. Decent takedown defense. What did I say his takedown accuracy? With 59% takedown accuracy, it seems pretty good, but I can't remember him using it all that much. I think he used his wrestling against Bill Algeo, um, but it's been a while since I've seen him really use his wrestling. He's taking on Julian Erosa. He is 34 years old. He's 6'1" with a 74.5-inch reach. He is 28-11 and 6-7 in the UFC. He has 11 wins by knockout and 12 wins by submission, which is most of his wins, all by finish. That's a pretty even, well-rounded, win ratio there. He's never been submitted, but has been knocked out 7 times throughout his career. Erosa at times, really impresses me. He submitted Charles Jourdain, who just submitted Ramos. Um, you know, uh, Erosa, beat up a King Dawadu, as well as a big underdog. That was what really kind of put me on, to realizing how good Erosa was. He has a win over Jamal Emmers by knockout, which is very impressive. He has a knockout win over Nate Landwehr. He has all the skills, man. He's tall, rangy, and huge for the weight class. He's going to have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. Does keep his hands a little low. Kind of fights. It's kind of an awkward style. Fights very well in the clinch. Nice little uppercuts. Uppercuts and elbows. Big knees in close. Can be wild and aggressive at times, which is what leaves those openings for him to get caught. But when he's being patient from the outside, he's very effective. Fast hands. His punches come from weird angles. He's good at creating angles. Has decent takedowns and grappling as well. He's a complete fighter, and he could take it. He could take the fight anywhere he wants. I'm not gonna lie. Um, I think Erosa might be better everywhere in this fight. The only thing that makes me pause is will the chin hold up? I will admit that he was still standing and fighting in his last fight, so he wasn't completely out. It was kind of a bad stoppage. Um, so at least he hasn't been put out, totally 2 times in a row now. The Alex Caceres knockout, that was nasty, but who would survive that? And Erosa shows 49% striking accuracy with which is way more than Ramos, and 48% striking defense, 46% takedown accuracy with 62% takedown defense. He averages 1.66 takedowns per 15 minutes. He lands on average 6.22 strikes per minute while absorbing 6.35. So they're both in the same boat there, but Erosa puts out way more volume, but does get hit a lot. Ramos is favored on Tapology. I guess I understand why, but I'm going to be going with Erosa here. I think as long as he can stay stay away from those crazy spinning elbows that Ramos throws. I think he'll get the better of the striking, but also think he could get the takedowns as well if he wanted. Man, he's very good. I'll take erosa to win by. I'll take him to win by third round submission. Next up, we got Trey Ogden taking on Kurt holobaugh. Excuse me. Gotta get some water. Um, Trey Ogden is 34 years old. He's 5'11 with a 72-inch reach. He is 16 and 6, and 16, 6 and 1, and 1, 2 and 1 in the UFC. Sorry. And he's a minus 140 favorite. He's never won or lost a fight by knockout, but he has 11 wins by submission. He's coming off what should have been a win over Nicholas Mata. Trey beat him everywhere in that fight, and he really needed that win, man. It was a very impressive performance, and he kind of got robbed of that by the referee. He was using his jab very well in that fight and staying out of the way of the big shots coming back at him. He's primarily known as a grappler, but you can tell he's been making a lot of improvements with his striking. He even has a win over Daniel Zellhuber, who's on a great run right now. Trey fights very smart. He sticks to his game plans. Not a flashy striker, but he has good basics with his boxing. Really good cardio. He looked like he was in the best shape of his life. Last time out. Very fast, very good at feinting the takedowns, and just kind of upsetting the rhythm, of his opponent. He doesn't get hit all that much. It's interesting that holobaugh is the favorite on Tapology, yet Ogden is the favorite on the betting line. I think Ogden will probably look, to clinch and wear on holobaugh and try to get the takedowns, look for submission. Um, I can tell that the numbers on the UFC.com haven't been updated yet because it says that Ogden has 17% takedown accuracy, that he's only landed one takedown in the UFC. He landed several in his last fight, so I know that's not correct. But it does say he has 100% takedown defense, averages 1.29 takedowns per 15 minutes. Probably more than that now after his last fight. 47% striking accuracy with 58% striking defense. He lands on average 3.64 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.02. And like I said, those numbers might be behind because he barely got hit in his last fight as well. He's taking on Kurt holobaugh. He is 37 years old, 5'11 with a 73-inch reach. He is 20 and 7 and 1 and 4 in the UFC, and he's a plus 120 underdog. He's coming off winning the Ultimate Fighter contract over Austin Hubbard. 7 wins by knockout, 10 wins by submission. He's a very tough guy, man. He's only been finished twice, once by knockout, once by submission. And this will be his third shot in the UFC, man. Back in 2013, he lost a fight. He lost a fight in Strikeforce. Then he came to the UFC and lost to Steven Seiler, and then he got cut. And then in 2018, he came back to the UFC and lost 3 in a row to Ronnie Barcelos, Shane Burgos, and Thiago Moises, which are all tough guys. Hollowball will have the power, a big power advantage on the feet, has the better striking. He's really aggressive and wild at times, leaves a lot of openings. He has a 1-inch reach advantage, but, um, uh, puts out a lot more volume than Ogden does with the striking. His takedown defense is what cost him in the UFC as well through, his other times in the UFC. He even got taken down against Austin Hubbard a few times. Um, and he does get hit quite a bit as well. Uh, he's dangerous off of his back. He lost he lost the first round against Austin Hubbard until he got the triangle choke, but he came on pretty strong, after that first round, and he shows 44% striking accuracy with 49% striking defense, 36% takedown accuracy with 50% takedown defense. Um, he averages under one takedown per 15 minutes, lands on average 4.89 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.44. I think there's a clear path to victory for Ogden here if he can get the takedowns, but if he can, it could be a very long night for him. Could be a very close fight. Hollowball's no joke at all. I'm going to take Ogden to win by decision. Am I super confident in it? No, not really. Uh, we're going to see what Hollowball's really got, I guess, in this fight. Since Trey looked amazing in his last fight, so um, hopefully he's really turned a corner. Next up, we got Edmund Shabazyan taking on AJ Dobson. Edmund Shabazyan is 26 years old. He is 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. He is 12-4 and 5-4 in the UFC, and he's a minus 187 favorite. 10 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. He's never been submitted, but has been knocked out 3 times. Um, he's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. 3 of those losses by knockout. He's a skilled striker. He came into the UFC, and had 4 wins in a row, 3 by finish, and they rushed him to the top of the division, where we found out that he's not a well-rounded fighter. He's been taken down quite a bit. All the guys that have beat him have been very tough, though. So, there's no shame in the losses for sure. He's definitely going to have a power advantage. He's the more technical striker. His cardio hasn't looked good at all, recently. He slows down considerably after the first round. He is very accurate and fast with his strikes, great counter striking, really nice setups when he has the space to do so. Um, he does not have, good wrestling. He sticks his head in a lot of chokes when he's shooting on guys. Even though he's only been submitted once, he still does stick his head in there off to the side. Um, where was that? And it's also still a bad look for the judges for, you shoot for a takedown and they put you in a choke and you got to abandon the takedown. Um, or the guy ends up on top of him or whatever. He is heavily favored on Tapology and on the betting line, which I find funny. He shows 51% striking accuracy with 44% striking defense, 39% takedown accuracy with 63% takedown defense. Says he averages 2 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he lands on average 3.46 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.13. He's taking on AJ Dobson. He is 32 years old. He's 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. He is 7-2 and 1-2 in the UFC, and he's a plus 162 underdog. 2 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. He's never been finished. He does tend to have close fights because he fights pretty safe. He's very athletic. He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. Throws nice calf kicks, very fast, stays real light on his front leg. He's steadily been making improvements, since he came to the UFC. And when he first came to the UFC, he looked like he was still very raw, still hadn't totally squared away his takedown defense and stuff like that. I think if he wanted, he could possibly get a takedown here. Edmund Shabazyan's takedown defense isn't very good. He's very AJ Dobson is very good at avoiding the big shots coming his way. He's got nice head movement, good at catching the kicks and sweeping the leg, ended up on top. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me on this one. I know Shabazyan is a flashy striker, but what we have here is, to me anyway, I don't know if anybody else agrees, but what we have here is a flashy striker with bad cardio, that's been finished 3 times in his last 5 fights, taking on a guy who's never been finished with great cardio. So I like Dobson's odds here, to be honest with you. Dobson shows 48% striking accuracy with 47% striking defense, 75% takedown accuracy with 65% takedown defense. He averages 1.82 takedowns per 15 minutes. He lands on average 4.38 strikes per minute while absorbing 5.25. So according to the numbers, he gets hit a lot, but in his last fight, he didn't get hit with very many big shots, mostly just kicks. I'm taking Dobson to win this fight. I think Shabazyan may have some early success, but the longer the fight goes, the more Dobson's going to take over. Yeah, it is possible that Dobson gets his first finish in the UFC here, but I'm going to take him to win by decision because just like in his last fight, Dobson was getting ahead on the numbers, winning the volume, kind of point fighting rather than really looking for a finish. So if he continues that here, he could come out on top. Maybe Shabazyan wins the first round, he wins the last 2, and maybe he'll go for it here. Maybe he'll tire Shabazyan out and really try to put him away. Next up, we got Carl Williams taking on Justin Tafa. Where is this fight? There we go. Yeah, I kind of kept it short and sweet on this one. Carl Williams is 34 years old. He's 6'3" with a 79-inch reach. He is 9-1 and 2-1 or 2-0 in the UFC. Sorry, it's a minus 270 favorite. 3 wins by knockout. Never won a fight by submission, but was submitted 1 time. He's a great wrestler, man. Very explosive and athletic. He has decent cardio, but he will wrestle himself into exhaustion at times. It's an interesting matchup in that Tafa has never been taken down in the UFC. Williams has a nice single leg, good trips, all that. There's not much more to say, man. That's his big advantage in this fight if he can use it. Tafa is actually a big favorite on Tapology, which is interesting. But Williams is damn near minus 300 on the betting line, so I'm not really sure if he's worth that much of a price. Um, and he's taking on Justin Tafa. He is 30 years old. He's 6 foot tall with a 74-inch reach. He is 7-3-1 and 4-3-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 205 underdog. 7 wins by knockout. All of his wins have been by knockout. He's never been submitted, never been taken down in the UFC. He's the better striker. He's got the power advantage on the feet. If he can keep it on the feet, it's his fight all day, man. He shows 55% striking accuracy with 49% striking defense. He's never shot a takedown in the UFC, and he has, like I said, 100% takedown defense. He lands on average 5.13 strikes per minute while absorbing 5.93, and he averages 1.54, basically 1.5 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Um, I probably won't be betting on this fight either way. The problem is, like I said, Tafa hasn't really fought a legit wrestler yet, so we don't really know if the takedown defense will hold up or not. If he's really got that good a takedown defense. I want Tafa to win this fight. I guess if I were betting on this fight, I would probably take the value on Tafa. But just for the sake of picking somebody, I'll pick Williams. Maybe he'll be able to get the takedowns. But I'll be watching the live betting line on this fight too. Um, but I hope Tafa wins. I hope Tafa knocks him out. Next up, we got Luis Pelayo taking on Fernando Padilla. And Luis is 29 years old. He's 5'10 with a 69.5-inch reach. He is 8-1, and this is going to be his UFC debut. Plus 132 underdog. Both these guys are huge 145ers, especially Padilla. Lewis has 7 wins by knockout, so all but one of his wins have been by knockout. He's never won or lost a fight by submission. He's coming off his knockout win on the Contender Series. He was a big underdog in that fight. He has great boxing, very high output, does a lot of damage, fights well in the clinch. I expect this fight to basically be a kickboxing match. Lewis throws hard calf kicks. He loves a war. He'll sit in the pocket and trade. Very good at getting on the inside. Has great cardio. He's always moving forward, pushing a high pace, works the body a lot. These guys have two different styles of striking, but they're both, very technical in their own ways. Lewis likes to stay in the pocket and have kind of like a technical brawl, if that makes sense. And Padilla likes to fight very long and at range. So I mean, two different styles, but they're both very effective. And Fernando is 27 years old. He is 6'1 with a 76-inch reach. He is 15-5 and 1-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 152 favorite. 5 wins by knockout, 8 wins by submission. All but 2 of his wins have been by finish. He's never been finished himself. Does have a loss on his record to Dan Ige back in 2017 on the regional scene. He's very tall and rangy. He's going to have a 6.5-inch reach advantage. His boxing is really nice. Everything is good, straight, and accurate. Very good at using his long reach. Great counter striking. Uses his jab very well. Great footwork. In his last fight, he wasn't checking the leg kicks. He needs to work on that. Very fast combinations. I'm not sure I agreed. I haven't gotten to that yet. I was thinking about the notes I was doing for the next card. I don't agree that he lost his last fight. I do think that he kind of got robbed there, but he was letting it be closer than he had to. So I mean, I'll say it seemed like he wasn't taking it seriously, wasn't doing enough, wasn't switching anything up. He was being very predictable, no urgency. He fights like that again, he could get knocked out, man. Palayu is favored on Tapology. Padilla is the favorite on the betting line. Um, I think I'm going to agree with the guys on Tapology, and I'm going to take the underdog um, to win. I'm going to take him to win by second round TKO. And the reason I'm doing that is because all Lewis's wins pretty much have come by finish. So if he wins, it's most likely going to be by finish. Um, Super confident in it? No, not really. But I didn't like the way that Fernando, Padilla was I don't know, man. He was just kind of coasting through his last fight, man. Lewis doesn't fight that way. Lewis is going to push the pace and really go for the knockout. Um, so we'll see what happens. I understand why Fernando has the UFC experience, and that's probably why he's the favorite on the betting line. Next up, we got Billy Quarintillo taking on Yusuf Zalal. Wow, a lot of people are favoring quarintillo here. Uh, and I got to scroll back down all the way to the beginning of my notes because this is the last fight I did. I just did this fight earlier today. So Billy Quarantillo is 35 years old. He's 5'10 with a 70-inch reach. He is 18-5 and 6-3 in the UFC. No odds on this yet. 8 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission. He's never been submitted, but has been knocked out a few times. Billy is very tough, man. His cardio is one of his best weapons. He'll often have a rough start to the fight and then overwhelm his opponent late. He pushes a really tough pace, always moving forward. Um, at times in the past, his takedown defense hasn't looked very good, but I feel like that's constantly improving from fight to fight. In his last fight, in the first round, he was getting beat up on the feet by Damon Jackson pretty badly, and then got taken down. It's like it just kind of takes him a minute to get going sometimes. Jackson gave it his all and had a great first round, but it was a completely different story at the start of the second round. Billy's very good at working the body in the clinch with his uppercuts. Uses the choke to defend takedowns. He does get hit quite a bit. A lot more than he should. But it takes something crazy like a Edson Barboza knee to put him out. With his hands, with his striking with his hands, it's volume, and pressure. Maybe not the most technical striking, but he does throw a lot and he lands a lot. Um, he does attack a lot of submissions off of his back, especially the omoplata. He shows 58% striking accuracy with 44% striking defense, 23% takedown accuracy with 64% takedown defense. Averages 1.31 takedowns per 15 minutes and lands on average 7.71 strikes per minute while absorbing 5.61. And it says he averages 1.18 submission attempts per 15 minutes. And he's taking on Yusuf Zalal. He is 27 years old, 5'10 with a 75-inch reach. He is 13-5-1 and 3-3-1 in the UFC. 4 wins by knockout, 6 wins by submission. He's never been finished. He was cut from the UFC after losing 3 in a row and then going to a draw with Damon Blackshear, which all the people he's lost to are good. Taporia. He went to a decision with Taporia. Who else has done that? Not very many people. Went to a decision with Sean Woodson, a split decision. Blackshear is a very underrated fighter as well. His best win in the UFC was over Austin Lingo, his actual win. But dude, he should have won the Blackshear fight for sure. But it's not like he was going out there and getting finished in any of those losses. He went to a decision with Taporia. That's super impressive. Like I said, sorry I repeated myself, but he's well rounded. He's stayed busy since leaving the UFC. He won 3 MMA fights, all by finish, and 1 kickboxing fight by finish, as well as a boxing match by decision. And 3 of those were, well, I'll tell you in a minute. Um, you know, were they against good competition? Not the best, but he definitely, at least he won dominantly. By finish. He got cut in 2022. He's already back. He's actually very good, man, and when you look into it, great kickboxing, nice double legs, good entries. His last fight in the UFC was at 135. I don't know if that's a one-time thing or if he's planning to go back down after this fight. This is on real short notice, but I'm willing to bet that he's prepared. He has great submission defense, great cardio as well. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. Throws a nice jab, nice step in knees. He throws a wider variety of strikes than Billy does. He trains at elevation. He doesn't get tired. Going back and watching the Blackshear fight, man, like I said, I don't agree with that being a draw. I thought Zalal clearly won that fight. In the third round, it was a 10-8 for sure. He almost finished Blackshear in the third round. Um, but the interesting thing to me was the last thing that Zalal competed in. It was actually a tournament where he won 3 fights in one day, 1 kickboxing fight, 1 boxing match, and 1 MMA match, which is pretty impressive. 3 fights one day. If I'm being honest, I think Zalal has a lot of advantages in this fight. He's a lot better than people think. He's the better grappler. He has the better takedowns. I think he might even be more technical on the feet. It just all comes down to how he deals with the pressure from Billy. Zalal shows 48% striking accuracy with 64% striking defense, 31% takedown accuracy with 61% takedown defense. He averages 2.14 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he lands on average 2.75 strikes per minute while absorbing 1.75. So low volume, but doesn't get hit very much. And I think a lot of that is he gets pulled into these into grappling, a lot in his fights. Um, I don't think anybody's going to agree with me on this, but after watching the tape, I really kind of appreciate how good Zalal is. Not that I don't appreciate how good Billy is. When I saw this fight, I'm immediately was like, oh yeah, I was going to take Billy, Quarintillo, but um, after watching the tape, I'm not so sure, man. I think Zalal has a pretty good shot. I know he struggled in the UFC, but like I don't think Billy Quarantillo would beat Sean Woodson, and Zalal lost a split decision to him. I don't think Billy Quarantillo would beat Topuria. Zalal went to a decision with him. Topuria would probably finish Quarantillo. Um, I don't know, man. Blackshear is pretty tough too. So uh, anyway, where was that? Oh yeah, so I'm gonna take a dog shot, man. Just be crazy I don't know what's gotten into me today, man. I don't know why I switched my pick. Originally I was gonna go with Billy, but after watching the tape, I think Zalal's got a good shot. Should be a fun fight either way, but neither of these guys get tired. I'll take Zalal to win by decision. Co-main event: Peyton Talbot versus Cameron Saaiman. It's interesting that this is the co-main event. I wonder if it's actually going to stay the co-main event or if they'll switch it around. Um, I don't remember what they had the co-main event before. I'll check real quick. The co-main event before was Carl Williams and Justin Tafa. Hmm. Either way, Peyton Talbot is 25 years old. He is 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. He is 7-0 and 1-0 in the UFC. And he was a minus 105, I believe. Looking at it this morning, he is actually like a minus 120 now. And Cameron's like a plus 105. Um, he's got 5 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. In his last fight, he got taken down and dominated in the first round, and then it was like his opponent just gave up or something, just kind of gassed out. Talbot's undefeated, tall and rangy for the weight class. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. I was very impressed with his win on the Contender Series. Man, he really walks guys down, and he does eat a lot of shots, but he doesn't get hurt very often. But he does need to be careful with that in the UFC though, because there's some people in the UFC that if you let them hit you like that, you'll go down. He has great cardio. He puts out a ton of volume. He landed almost 150 significant strikes in his fight on the Contender Series. He fights very loose, keeps his hands low. Those really nice straight shots, and he hits hard even though it doesn't look like he's putting much on him. He reminds me a lot of Sean O'Malley and Alex Caceres. The way he fights. His takedown defense isn't very good, but it's hard to keep him down. He kept getting taken down, and in his last fight on the Contender Series, and he kept getting back up. Um, we've seen him hurt in fights and come back. He's never lost. So, I mean, even as an amateur, he just stays in your face. He's young. He's going to be improving constantly. In his last fight, he wasn't using his feet to push off of the hips when he was trying to get up from the bottom position. He was just kind of trying to get himself to the cage and get up that way. Um, so, kind of needs some work in that area. His pace and pressure are his best weapons. Great kicks to the body, great ground and pound, nasty combinations. This is a giant jump up in competition for Talbot, man, to be fighting Cameron Saaiman, who's had several fights in the UFC against tough opponents. And, Saaiman's well rounded. So it's an interesting fight. It's going to be great. It's great matchmaking for sure. But it's crazy to try and pick between, try to turn down Saaiman at plus money. Um, and Cameron Saaiman is 23 years old. He is 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. He is 9-1 and 3-1 in the UFC. And like I said, I think he's actually at plus money now. 6 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. He's never been finished. He has great kickboxing. Throws a wide variety of strikes. He's very effective. Really nice kicks, man. Very technical striking. He's well rounded. He's pretty good on the ground. He's dangerous everywhere. I think his loss in his last fight, would have been, very good for him. He knows what to go back and work on. He's constantly getting better. He's very young. He attacks all levels with his strikes, man. Very evenly, body, head, legs. He puts out a lot of volume. Throws kicks with his lead leg. Switches stances a lot. Great spinning attacks as well. Great counters. Good entries. Um, I think he has a big advantage here, and possibly in the wrestling slash grappling, area of this. Talbot has been taken down quite a bit. He's hard to keep down, but he's never fought anybody, as good as Cameron Saaiman, either. So, he may even be the better striker, but Talbot, just kind of eats shots all day and they don't affect him. So I'm thinking Saaiman will look to get it to the ground at some point. It really all comes down to how Saaiman deals with the pressure, of Talbot. Saaiman does have good footwork, so it's not out of the question that he may be able to, stay moving and make Talbot miss and counter or just eat Talbot up from the outside with his kicks. He has really great kicks. Um, Saman shows 47% striking accuracy with 56% striking defense, 36% takedown accuracy with 44% takedown defense. Does get taken down quite a bit at times, but he's usually got pretty good sweeps. He's good at reversing position, stuff like that. Um, he averages one takedown per 15 minutes. He lands on average 5.28 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.24. He's gotten knockdowns in most of his fights in the UFC. Maybe all of them. I don't remember if he knocked down Christian Rodriguez or not, but all the other fights he did. I'm taking Saaiman to win this fight by decision. If Talbot beats Saaiman, I'll ride with him from here on out. But I mean, I just feel like this is a big jump up in competition for Talbot, man. The guy that Talbot just beat never fought in the UFC before. Obviously, didn't have a very good skills because he got gassed out after the first round. This is a pretty serious, step up in competition, man. And Saaiman let me down last time against Rodriguez, um, but Rodriguez is very tough. Maybe Saman's going to learn from that. Maybe he's going to make the improvements. Um, Super confident in it, no, but Saman's at plus money, so I guess I'll take him. The odds are close either way. You get a good deal either way. So let me know what y'all think, man. Next up, we got the main event. Amanda Ribas taking on Rose Namajunas. Amanda is 30 years old. She's 5'3" with a 66-inch reach. She is 12-4 and 7-3 in the UFC, and she's a plus 140 underdog. 3 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission. She's never been submitted, but has been knocked out 3 times. Ribas went down to 115 pounds in her last fight. This one is back up at 125, supposedly, according to Tapology. Um, Ribas had a rough start to her last fight, but she came back and just kind of wore on Luana Pinheiro and landed that wheel kick late in the fight, and it was a very fun fight and very very impressive win. Ribas does get hit a lot. She's often busted up in her fights. Doesn't have the best striking defense or head movement, but she is a great grappler with dangerous submissions, and she's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage in this fight. I would say that her best bet in this fight would be look for takedowns. But Rose is so well rounded, man. I'm not sure that if she could get Rose down or not. Ribas never stops coming until you knock her out. She's super tough. I'm a big fan of hers for sure. She shows 42% striking accuracy with 63% striking defense, 52% takedown accuracy with 88% takedown defense, and she averages 2 takedowns per 15 minutes, and she lands on average 4.92 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.33. She's taking on Rose Namajunas. She is 31 years old. She is 5'5" with a 65-inch reach. She is 11-6 and 9-5 in the UFC. She's a minus 160 favorite. 2 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission. She's a two-time fucking champion. In the UFC, she's well rounded. She could do it all. She's still relatively young, and she's good everywhere, man. Her last fight, against Ferrot, Ferrot did just enough to win the first 2 rounds. If that had been a 5-round fight, I think Rose would have definitely won that fight. I think Rose has a lot of advantages in this fight in the striking. Her head kick is one of her best weapons. She's fought the way tougher competition. She's got 2 wins over the current strawweight champion. She has 5-round cardio, and that's one big advantage she'll have in this fight. She shows 41% striking accuracy with 63% striking defense, 49% takedown accuracy with 61% takedown defense. She averages 1.5 takedowns per 15 minutes, and she lands on average 3.68 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.53. I'm taking Rose Namajunas to win this fight. I think she's going to get a finish late in this fight. Um, yeah, Amanda just gets hit way too much, man, and Rose is a former world champion that's got some serious wins on her belt. I'm gonna take Rose to win by fourth round TKO. And that's it for my picks, guys. Over and pull my bet flyer up. Not a lot of action on this card, man. Once again, um, this card and uh, this card and the Tuivasa and Tybora card both are like not a really a lot of strong leans on these cards. Um, not putting a lot of money, not getting heavily invested. Really putting more money than I want to probably on there. But uh, either way, so I got Andre Lima at -115. That's a quarter unit play. I got to play on Steve Nguyen at -170. That's a 1 unit play. And then I got to play on Namajunas at -160. That's a 1 unit play. Um, as far as parlays go, they don't have all the lines up for this card on Bovada yet, so I wasn't able to, completely put together parlays. But I don't know that I'll even do much more parlays than what I've already got here. So, uh, I got a lot of underdogs, so I'm keeping the parlays relatively small, and the value's there. So, first I got a 4-fight parlay, which is uh, zhelenyakova, Rose Namajunas, Stephen Nguyen, and Mick Parkin, and that's a plus 593. And then I've got all the same people plus who did I add? Plus then I added Dobson and Julian Erosa, both plus money. That makes it a plus 3,712. I'll leave them up for a second just so you can see. I'm also interested in seeing what the line is on the Billy Quarintillo and Yusuf Zalal fight. I don't know. I don't know what I got in my head today when I was watching the tape on that, but I was like, man, I think Zalal can win this. So we'll find out if I'm wrong or not. Uh, and as far as that, I've got one more parlay, which is Zhelenyakova, Namajunas, Dobson, Stephen Nguyen, Julian Erosa, Mick Parkin, and Trey Ogden. That's a 7-fight parlay. That's a plus 6,435. Um, yeah, like I said, there might not be much more than that on this card. I don't know. I mean, I might try to make a full card parlay. I might not, man. I've been wasting a lot of money here lately on these big parlays. Fucking $100 a week or whatever. So we'll see what happens, man. But I really appreciate all you guys, man. Thank you so much for caring what I have to say. I can't stress that enough, man. I really appreciate all you guys. Thank you guys who have been posting your bets in the Facebook group, all that stuff. Um, I would like to be able to do more for the people who watch my channel one of these days. Whenever I start making money, doing these videos and stuff like that. Maybe do some contest and give away some stuff. Eventually, start a Patreon, kind of put some prop bets or extra stuff on there. Have contest on there, whatever. Stuff to show my appreciation. Yeah, I'm planning on getting some shirts made. I'm probably going to give away a few of those whenever I get those made. Um, give them away to some of the people who've been around and people who participate and comment and post their stuff, whatever. But thank you guys so much, man. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good one, win some money. I'm out of here.